Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Amanda Lamb. In today's deep dive conversation with Ryan Bisesi, we're going to talk about the disturbing images from the videos released by Raleigh police regarding that mass shooting in October. Welcome to the program, Ryan. Can you first begin by just briefly recapping what you know about what happened on October 13th that was on and near the Neuse River Greenway in Raleigh, just off of Osprey Cove Drive?
Well, it was around 5:15 when someone called to 911 about a person shot in the 6,000 block of Osprey Cove Drive there in East Raleigh. And we eventually learned that 5 people died. This was a mass shooting. One of the people was a Raleigh police officer. Some were found shot along the Neuse River Greenway. A couple others were found shot outside their homes. Of the 2 people that were injured, one was a Raleigh police officer, Casey Clark, who was released from the hospital. He was shot in the knee. And a male juvenile suspect who we later learned was 15-year-old Austin Thompson. He was arrested around 9:37 that night, and Raleigh Police, State Highway Patrol, and Wake County deputies all responded. And the roads in and around that neighborhood there in East Raleigh were closed for several hours.
And I think a lot of people watched this unfold on TV. They watched it unfold online. And 7 weeks later, Raleigh police released 3 officer body camera videos, and they start after the shooting and at the point where the officers are trying to get the suspect. They've tracked him. They had the Highway Patrol helicopter up. They had canines out. They had ATVs. They were driving through the woods. And one of the things they did release was this 12-minute kind of a compilation clip of what happened. So take me to the scene, the very beginning of this video. What are the officers doing? How does it begin?
So the video starts out with some captions that kind of give you a background of, and some context of what's going on at that point in time. The video shows about a 5-minute period of time around 6:45, which at that point was about 90 minutes after they got the call. And the video takes place in a barn adjacent to a home on McConnell Oliver Drive.
And that's about 2 miles from the scene.
That's 2 miles from the scene of where they responded to initially, yes.
And I think they had a sighting or tip that he'd been running down a certain road, and that's what led them to this location.
And officers followed like a canine track where they kind of cross into a fenced yard in a very wooded area, and there appears to be like a barn or garage-type, shed-type structures, 2 of which I saw in the video. And they're, as you said, they're several miles from the home where he lived, and about 90 minutes after the 911 call, near I-540 at this point.
And the tone, because I watched the video too, I mean, to me, it seems like they're being very professional, they're doing their job, but there's not a necessary urgency. They don't know for sure that he's there. They're just following some leads at this point.
Right, and you can hear in the dialogue between the officers and deputies at that point, I hear one guy say, guys, we're getting a little tired, but we got to keep walking because if he keeps going, he's beating us. And they felt like they were on a track. They felt pretty confident in that they were headed on the right path. And I think the verbiage I heard was, let's push. So, they continued to follow that canine track and enter that fenced-in area.
And pretty quickly, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like 3 minutes in, does that sound right?
Yeah, 3 minutes in.
About
correct.
3 minutes into that, again, very professional. We're pushing, we're going to find this guy. There are gunshots. Tell me about that.
Well, about 3 minutes in, they get a pretty good sense after they get into that fenced area that there's a chance he's hiding in one of those buildings on the property. About the light, you see a light shine into the garage shed type building and then gunfires exchange. You hear, I think the last thing Officer Clark says is, these lights are on, and then he reacts to being shot in the leg.
And there's a lot of gunfire. I mean, it's pretty rapid fire coming. You can't really tell where it's coming from. I mean, you can see it coming from a couple of the officers. Yeah,
you can see that it's really chaotic there for a few moments. But Officer Clark is hit, and the officers and deputies are very prompt and professional in, taking him to safety, and they drag him kind of behind another building and kind of so he can kind of have some distance and some shield from getting shot again, and at the same time they're able to
keep going
and kind of focus on some people are focusing on helping him and getting him a tourniquet and adhering to his injuries, as well as still focusing on
on the suspect. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that really moved me about that, I don't know that I've ever seen video from the body camera of an officer who's been shot
it definitely
and
puts
survived.
It definitely puts it in a new light when you hear the camera. You see the camera go down, and then the camera just has that vantage point of looking out from his leg,
and you can hear him talking. I mean, he's alert. He's injured, but he's talking and he's being attended to. And I don't know, that just to me I think was pretty powerful to see that. We will be right back after the break with more from Ryan on what happened next, how authorities were able to get the suspected shooter into custody, and what his condition was at the time. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm talking with WRAL digital writer Ryan Bisesi about new released police video in the Raleigh mass shooting in October. So before the break, Ryan, we're talking about how the authorities had cornered the suspect, who we later learned was 15-year-old Austin Thompson, in a barn in Wake County. Gunshots were exchanged, and at this point, the suspect's in the barn. An officer is on the ground. He's been shot. What goes on next? I mean, the first few minutes were chaotic, and then they're kind of, I guess, planning for what are we going to do here, right?
So after the exchange of gunfire, the officers established a perimeter to keep the suspect contained in that building for the safety of anyone who was nearby. I think they were on a landowner's property. And due to concerns about, the nature of weapons he possessed at that time, I think they had reports that he had multiple firearms. I think he had a knife on him. There were possible, in a 911 call, someone reported that he might have hand grenades. So at that point, they obviously don't know for sure what weapons he has, but they have to proceed extremely cautiously. And the I-540 is nearby as well. So they're proceeding with all those things in mind. It looks like, as we mentioned earlier, they were very supportive, tended to Officer Clark's injuries in a very prompt manner.
Yeah, and that was pretty dramatic too. Like they're paying attention to the barn, but at the same time, they're paying attention to the officer. They keep checking in with him, asking him how he is, making sure he's getting, the proper help, and they're making a plan to get him out because they need to get him out. They need to get him medical attention. But those are difficult situations because you have you can't bring in EMS to an active shooter scene.
Right.
So they were trying to figure out how to do that. And I did feel like that was pretty remarkable, just watching these officers going, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Okay," and then focusing back on the barn. And again, we don't have all this video yet, but we do know they put up drones. They sent in some kind of robotics to try and see what the situation was, because, like you said, he could have had explosives. They didn't know how much ammunition he had, so there were a lot of questions at that point. And I think one of the things that I was also, paid attention to was they were really concerned about him getting out of that barn, right? Mm-hmm. Talk about that. I mean, what kinds of things were they saying? They wanted to make sure the perimeter was secure, right? That was a big part of it.
Yeah, they definitely established the perimeter to keep him contained there. At that point, he'd already shot several people, and they obviously wanted to keep that limited. You've got the highway nearby. You've got someone's house. I think they were on someone's property nearby, and at that point, I'm sure one of the goals is to keep loss of life minimized at that point. So they achieved that goal in that sense.
Right. They were making sure that what happened 2 miles away wasn't going to happen anywhere else.
And it already went across a public space in the Neuse River Greenway. I mean, no one obviously is running along the Greenway and, thinks that could be a possibility.
Absolutely. And we do know, like you said, that he was taken into custody a little after 9:30, that he had a single gunshot wound. He went to the hospital, he went to rehab, and now he's in the juvenile system. What's next?
I think, he's being tried as an adult. At this very moment, he doesn't have much of a traceable history that's public domain. Like he doesn't have
because he's still being treated as a juvenile.
Yes, he's still being treated as a juvenile
until he gets to that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Authorities can only release so much. I'm not aware as far as a timeline as when we'll find out more.
I don't think we have an actual court date yet, so I think it's just a waiting game.
Right. So yeah, we can only learn so much at that point, but there will obviously be heavy public interest in this case as it gained national attention.
Absolutely. And I think it's so hard for us as journalists because we want to give people answers. People want to know why, how, all of these questions that we have as well. And behind the scenes, as you know, we're all working on this case
Right.
to try to get those answers.
Right. And it seems like we could get some answers and we could get a trial at some point. And, I'm just struck by how the suspect has a gunshot wound to the head in this case and is able to survive and, be taken to another facility. And from all I know, is able to have all his brain function and is able to communicate, in a lucid sense. And that's not something I thought we were going to get. I thought, that this suspect would not survive and we'd kind of never get any sort of story or motive or anything of that sense. But it looks like,
it will go. It will in some fashion. It will go through the court system, right?
Yeah.
Right. And at that point, as the district attorney of Wake County has told us, that she expects him to be bound over as an adult, and at that point, it becomes part of the public record. Ryan, thank you so much for breaking down this story for us. I really appreciate it. This has been the WRAL Daily Download, a production of WRAL News. Check out my 2 true crime podcasts. What Remains focuses on solving cold cases with forensic science. Follow the Truth is about the murder of Michael Jordan's father in North Carolina in 1993. Find both of them in your podcast app.